Good afternoon, everyone. Go ahead and join in and share where you're joining from. And it might be afternoon, it might be morning, it might be evening. So just share where you're joining from. And as we're talking about networking, go ahead and drop in your LinkedIn URL too. So I'm gonna give it a minute or two before we get going. Ooh, California. Hey, Jenny. Amina's in Bedford. We got Bonnie, New Hampshire. I'm here in Newton, Mass. If we didn't connect already, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Well, I don't know why it keeps saying preparing the live stream. Hmm, that's weird. All right, well, it is 12:03, so I am not going to keep anyone any longer. Let's get to it because, as usual, I have way too much information. But if you haven't shared already, share where you're joining from. Go ahead and drop in your LinkedIn URL and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm really excited to get going. Today, we're talking about all about the connections and how to use to connect with the content as well. So let me get my slideshow running here. All right, here we go. So, welcome to Beyond Connections, AI-powered LinkedIn strategies to build authority and opportunity. If you don't know by now, I am Angela Pitter. I'm the founder of Livewire Collaborative, a company I found. I call myself the accidental entrepreneur because I was actually campaigning for school committee in my city here, the city of Newton. And that's where I discovered the value of social media and how companies can use social media and nonprofits can use social media to really extend their digital footprint and to, bring up elevate their visibility. So I work with larger nonprofits like a YMCA. I also work with mid-sized businesses, and they're mid-sized in the sense that, in terms of revenue, but they're small in the technical sense because typically 100 employees or less. They have a smaller marketing team, but they're a lean, mean machine. And those are the kind of companies I like to work with. I also do a lot of executive coaching and corporate training, especially on LinkedIn. This is one of my favorite topics I love to talk about. So today we're going to go right into it. Here's my framework. And you probably, if you attended my last session, either through BU, and also recently I gave one at a conference, Rise. I really focused on the first part, which was the power of attraction and how to use your profile to bring people to you, like bees to the honey. But today we're going to focus on part B and C, which is building the network and collaborating with the content. So in today's agenda, I'm first going to just kind of set the playing field here and just talk about LinkedIn as a tool. And then we're going to go into how you use it to discover people, how you use it to connect with people, and then the real core part here is how do you gauge through the content and then convert with the content. And then finally, how do you know this is all working? So I'm going to talk about consistency. We're going to look at some metrics, and then we'll close. So let's launch the next poll here. Who is in the room? I want to know who you are. If you're professional, you C-suite. This is actually a dual poll. You're going to have 2 questions to answer. I also want to know about your LinkedIn mastery. So there should be a poll up on your screen there with the 2 questions in it. Just please go ahead and answer the 2 questions. Show me where you're at. If you're solopreneur, if you're a C-suite, mid-career, been in the game a minute like me, nonprofit, executive director, let us know who's here. And then talk about your mastery. Where are you on LinkedIn? You're just a basic, you're confident, pretty much a power user here. Let's see where you're at. So about 24 people here. So let's see if we can get maximum participation. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds here, and then I'm going to stop the poll. So it looks like we got a good mix of coaches, business owners here, as well as professionals. A lot of professionals that have been here 10 plus years. That's pretty cool. And then in terms of mastery, the majority are basic, post occasionally. So hopefully by the end of this, I can help you move from that basic to that next level. So let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn now has 1.2 billion members globally across the world. And as you can see, Europe and Asia Pacific are like where the people are, the bulk of the audience. And that never used to be. And I would say that probably flipped in about right around COVID, around 2020. But the funny thing about LinkedIn is, think about it as a slow burn. It took them literally 20 years to get to this billion mark. And if you think about, in comparison, TikTok, which launched 2016, it reached a billion in like 6 years. So LinkedIn launched in 2003. So it's actually the oldest network. It's been around as long, but it's like, the slow burn. So you think if you crock pot, you started in the morning and by the evening it's done. That's LinkedIn. And you'll see when we get to the end and we start talking about content, that, and I don't know, some of you may already be noticing this, that there's a lot more content that's staying in the feed a lot longer. So the quick thing around the numbers, we'll just go through this. Over a billion, most of them are outside the US. There's over 69 million companies and over 2.2 million nonprofits. 10,000 job applications are literally happening every minute on LinkedIn. And then 2.5 million people are hired through their connections every year, which is one of the reasons I want to get to the conversation around beyond connections and how do we use LinkedIn to get to that next level. So why LinkedIn? Here's one of the reasons. It's searchable. When you have a good LinkedIn profile, and it doesn't honestly have to be that good, but Google loves it. So if somebody's Googling you and they just met you at a conference and they go back to their office and they Google you, you will come up in LinkedIn. And you can see here, LinkedIn for me is number 2 and my website is number 3. So that is one of the reasons. You're easily found when you have a LinkedIn profile, and it's even better when it's fully populated. So Deb's story. This is yet another reason why you want to be using LinkedIn. So I literally just met Deb at the conference this week, and Deb shared with me this story. And you can see she has 26,000 followers, but that wasn't always the case. So once upon a time, Deb applied for a job and she had a really, really good interview. She was really excited. She was convinced that she had the job offer. So it was to her surprise and dismay when she got the call the next day that she didn't get the job. And she's thinking to herself, like, what happened? Like 24 hours ago, I knew I had this job. And so she, finally licked her wounds. And then she said, you know what? I'm going to reach back out and I'm going to call them and see if I can get to the bottom of this. And she called them back and then she asked them, like, I thought I really did well in the interview. And they said, yeah, you really did. You were one of our best interviewees. And then so now she's really perplexed. And she says, so well, what happened? Oh, we went to your LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn, you had nothing there. You only had 236 connections. Like, wait, what? Yes, I had the same reaction. Um, it was unbelievable that someone will disqualify you, one of your best interviewees, because of what was on your LinkedIn profile. So we are here today to fix all of that. That is not going to happen to anyone who's here today. So we're going to talk about how I'm going to use LinkedIn to build a quality network, because she went from 236 to 26,000 connections, and you can do that too. Okay, so what's the biggest challenge on LinkedIn right now? You could just put some hearts, or we could do the poll. That's fine. You can do the poll. Is it finding the right people? Knowing what to post? Is it all of the above? None of the above? Staying consistent. If there's something else, you could go ahead and put it in the chat. And while we're in the chat, you could also, if you want to go ahead and share where you're joining from. If you just joined us, and go ahead and connect in your LinkedIn URL, because of course today is all about making that connection. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So it looks like, there's a lot of people who are worried about or concerned about, maybe not necessarily worried, but you want to know about what should I be posting and how do I make those connections. So we're going to talk about those connections. That's the next thing that's right up on the agenda here. So let's get moving. All right. So on LinkedIn, there's degrees of separation. So it's pretty simple. I'm connected to Karen. Karen's in my network. She's my first degree. Karen has Beth in her network. So people in Karen's network are second degree. Now, Beth has people in her network. So people that are in Karen's network that are now in Beth's network, that's the third degree. So you're really not going to go into that into that third degree level. You're really going to be working with the people you directly connected to and the people they're connected to. So that first degree and the second degree is all we're going to worry about today. The end of the day, it's not what you know, it's really who you know. So sometimes people talk about, like, well, who should I be connecting with? I don't know them. We're going to get to that. I'm going to get to that, having that conversation, because you really want to connect broadly and deeply. So how many connections do you have? Do you have less than 1,000? Do you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, more than 5,000? How many connections do you have? Okay, most of you answered, so we can stop the poll. So I would say the majority of you have less than 1,000 connections, and I guess the next most popular, it would be between 2,000 and under. So what I want you to think about is how many connections you should actually have. So the older you are, the more people you know, therefore, the more connections you should have. Because the first thing you need to do on LinkedIn is making sure you connect with everybody you know. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Your colleagues, your business partners, people in your community, network acquaintances. If you went to any university, college, and yes, family and friends. Because again, it's not what you know, is who you know. So you want to make sure you're connecting with at least the people you know. So, and LinkedIn helps you do that, because if you go to your profile, and a lot of stuff happens in that right nav here, over here, right? And there's a lot of noise, a lot of ads, but this also shows up people you may know. And it's usually really accurate because the more you start connecting, LinkedIn starts doing the math. I mean, Angela knows Karen, Karen knows Beth, maybe Angela knows Beth. So, and sure enough, when I went through with this and I looked, I was like, oh, I know Kelly. How come I'm not connected to Kelly? I need to connect with Kelly. So every now and then, just look over to the right, look past the ads, and see if there's anyone that you actually know that you're not connected with and make that connection. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to check out your alumni path. Now, I went to BU. BU, of course, is right here in Boston. And the bulk of the alumni are actually local as well. What you'll find for a lot of colleges in big cities, that the alumni are basically in the geographic area of the university or the college. So in this case, you can see over 300,000 alumni on LinkedIn, which is great for me. It's actually great for you because you can search any university. It doesn't matter whether you went there or not. So in this case, like I mentioned, there's over 100,000 right here in good old Massachusetts. So the next thing I can do is like, okay, I want to find my alumni who are at State Street. So maybe you want to do business with State Street, or maybe you want to work at State Street, whatever the case is. I can then sort a little bit more and find those alumni that are here in Boston and at State Street. Now, I need to find the people in the finance department. So now I can then go in and select a little bit more, refine that a little bit more. And then I finally say, you know what, but I really want to talk to the folks that are at that VP level, right? And I'm going to show you how this actually works. I'm going to take you through the search. I'm going through it really quickly here. But in the end, I'm starting with 100,000 people, alumni that live in the area, and weeding that down really quickly to the 6 or 8 people that I need to connect with. So let me just show you. I'm going to share my screen. Let me stop share a second so I can get over to the right place. All right. So this is the BU page, Boston University, right? And then so just like I showed you, I can click on alumni and D. All right. So we can see there's over 100,000 here. I click on that Greater Boston where they were, and then you see it only just shows you a couple. So you actually just type in the search box the company you want to search. In this case, it was State Street, right? And then so I select that. And then I'm going to go all the way over here. So you notice where it says where they live. It also shows what they do. So I want the people that are in the finance department. And so that's 58 people now. And then one more thing, I keep scrolling over. You see that little arrow? Keep it going. And I want the people that are in my second level, because those are the folks I can reach. And then when I scroll down and see who those people are. So that is how you do it. Now you could do the same thing with a company. So right over here, say I wanted to find someone at WS Development at a company. So I'm going to do a people search when you're at a company. And this is the other thing you can do. You can also put in, which I didn't demonstrate in the other search, but you want to actually really refine who you're searching for. So the easiest way to do that is by title. And note here how I have vice president, or so you have to have the modifiers, VP. And the reason I do this is because sometimes people just literally write VP in their title and not the whole vice president and director. And maybe I'm actually looking for specific talent, which in this case, asset management. So I put that in there. And then when I scroll down, I have a list of those folks that match. And you can see here, some of them have vice president in their title, and some of them have SVP or EVP in their title. So that's one of the reasons you have to use the modifiers to get all of the variations in the search. So that's a quick way on how to use LinkedIn in the search. And you could also start it up here in the search bar and then start from there as well. Okay, let me get back into and let me just check real quick. Is there anything? What defines I know, Andy? I know a lot of people I haven't had any level of drag. So yeah, again, so people you may know, that's what it is, may know. And again, what defines it is almost like a math problem. They look at, again, if I know Andy and Andy knows someone else, I might also know that someplace else. So after a while, it starts making a connection in your network as you're connecting with people, because it'll see that you connected with this one, who's connected with this one, who's also connected with this one. So it kind of does the algorithm and puts all of that together and guesses. And over time, it gets better and better. In the beginning, it may not be as correct, but I find over time that it is actually pretty on point. Okay. So let me jump ahead. Okay. So what's your connection strategy now? So back to that point, some people don't connect. Some people connect with everyone. Some people only connect with the people that they know. Some people have a hybrid strategy. They do a combination of this, or it could be some other totally different thing. So I want to know here, what is your connection strategy? What do you do now? I'm seeing a lot of I only connect with people I know. How's that working out? I have another connection strategy. Okay. So it looks like the number one response is I only connect with people I know, followed by I connect with everyone. So this is the thing, my friends. You know, good old MIT, they're always doing a study. But what you want to do, and this is something that LinkedIn actually created, and you can see here, this happened long time ago. This was 2014. They don't let you do this anymore, but you just be able to map your network. And then you can see a lot of, in my here, all this concentration all the way to the right. You see this dark orange and the dark blue. So before the company days, I spent 25 years in high tech. If you've been in New England for a long time, you might remember Digital Equipment Corporation, who was then bought by Compaq, who was then bought by HP. I was there for all of it. So in the beginning, my network was super techy. And these dark colors are those tech people, right? So, but over time, I'm now connected with more people. So you really want to think about making sure that your network might be deep where your expertise is, but broad across it, because I'm not necessarily hiring or trying to do business with tech companies, right? I'm trying to do business more with larger nonprofits, etc. Right? So for me to just keep my network over here wouldn't be a disservice, right? And in fact, MIT, sorry, I jumped ahead. They did a study a couple years ago, 20 million people, analyzed 2 billion relationships, where the jobs were actually created. And it just basically came down to weak ties are better, because when you have social networks that resemble your own, you're going to have a lot of overlap. So you're not going to necessarily find people, right? So this is one of the reasons why sometimes the casual acquaintance actually makes is more to your benefit. So, I mean, the casual acquaintance could be, someone you met at the networking event. It could even be an alumni, because they might have graduated a couple years after you or a couple years before you. So the idea is you still want to try and kind of keep your network broad as well, which means sometimes you are going to connect with people you don't know. However, we have a system here, right? Because again, with over 1 billion people, there's clearly going to be some bad actors. So you can look for things, people you have in common. You can look if they included a message. I like when people send me a personal message in there. You can look at their headline, which is one of the reasons I focus on headlines, to not be a title, because that doesn't tell me much about you, right? If you have a good headline, your headline follows you around, and then I can kind of see, oh, yeah, that makes sense for me to connect with that person. Now, you could also do the deep dive. You can go to their profile. You can see if they're verified. They have a verified profile. You can see what type of comments they're making, what type of activity. So if you want, you can go to do the deep dive. And if you really want to take that additional step, as if we all have so much time, but if you did, you may want to just reply, thank you for your invitation. I only connect with people I know. How did you find me? How do you think we might benefit? So you get the right to ask. And sometimes I do that. And if they don't reply, I keep it moving. So what you want to do is get a connection request that's going to get accepted. So when you're now reaching out to people, you want to make sure it's personalized. You want to make sure it's clear. You want to mention how you found them. If you have anything in common, we attended the same conference, we went to the same school, whatever it is. And then, some gratitude and leave some kind of requests, for them. Your reason for reaching out, basically, is what you want to have. So, give them a reason to reply, asking for advice, opinions, referrals, whatever that might be. Right. So let's look at a sample here. Right. So loved your company's post, and then again, this is where you want to try and be a little specific. Your post, or it could have been something they posted from their company. I recently helped some industry client reach, some numbers, you want to show your leadership and would love to collaborate. Let's stay in touch. If I can ever help out in the future, cheers, right? So it could be like, I recently enjoyed your post on diversity. I noticed we both attended the RISE conference. I'm exploring new opportunities in HR and would value connecting with you to learn more about your experience at State Street, right? Thank you for considering my request, right? So that's one way to approach it, right? So I have a prompt library, if you want, with a lot of these prompts that has include the different variation of invites, follow-ups, all the things that you would need. So if you're interested in that, you can go in there and click that QR code and get that upgrade. And it includes all of this, like, all these hooks, right? And which one, why it works, when it doesn't work. So I think this one works. Whenever I use this, literally, I would say 99% of the time it works, right? I saw your panel. I love what you talked about, blah, 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 blah. Love to connect. Let's stay connected, right? Or the other one is, a mutual friend suggested, or sometimes, depends on the situation, you may ask that mutual friend to make the introduction for you. And that's always another way to approach it. But any of these can work. So these are examples on how you can actually reach out to people and actually get a response, right? So a couple of things you want to know real quickly. There are limits on LinkedIn. So if you start spamming and doing like more than 100 a week, LinkedIn will put you in jail. Yep, your account will go straight into jail. And if you send too many invites, the one thing though, if you on the free account, you could only do 20 a month. You could only customize, I should say. Let me be clearer. You only customize, which is crazy because I don't like to send invitations without a message in there. But oddly enough, according to LinkedIn, invites without messages actually get more acceptance, which I don't know who's doing that, but anywho, that's what they say. But I always like to send an actual reason why, or I'm reaching out, but you only get to do that 20 times on the free account. So how do you spend your time on LinkedIn? Are you building your network? Are you reaching out to customers? Are you posting original content? So, we're not going to poll right now, but I'm going to start talking about how you engage with your network using the content. But we are going to poll this question because I do want to know, how often are you posting on LinkedIn? Once a month, twice a month, once a week, couple times a week? What are we doing? Okay. So, um, hmm, the majority you around once a quarter. Hmm. Yeah, we need to get a little bit more frequent than that. We definitely want to be a little bit more frequent than that. So there's a influencer out there on LinkedIn, Richard Vanderbloom. Some of you might have heard him, and he posts these algorithm reports a couple times a year. And literally, just the beginning of this week, his latest one came out. So according to report, posting 2 times a week, 2 to 3 times per week remains the optimal cadence, maintaining an average, right? So, and then the daily posting accelerates content fatigue. So if you're posting daily, it's accelerating content fatigue. I can't even talk, resulting in a 45% reduction, diminishing engagement quality. So the moral of the story is 2 to 3 times a week, and that includes the weekends, because you could do maybe twice during the week, and then maybe a Saturday or Sunday you could have something a little bit more lighthearted, so to mix it up a bit. So don't stress yourself out thinking that you got to post daily, because that is actually not working well these days, at least not according to Richard. So I'm sorry, skip the slide. So what do you need to post? So this is really, if you think about the wheelhouse of content, you're going to put out informational, facts, news, tips, educational, how-to stuff still works super well. You could be entertaining. You could show behind the scenes, like if you're running an event and you want to share some of what's happening there, and inspiration. So inspiration always works. There's Monday motivation, Wednesday wisdom. It works on Facebook, and yes, it does work on LinkedIn. But what also works on LinkedIn is just commenting. So if you're not posting, I should have asked the question about how often are you commenting? Because just because you're not posting doesn't mean you're not commenting. Now, here's a post that was interesting. And she's talking about, I don't get it. What do people have against personal posts on LinkedIn? It doesn't belong here. And then it goes for, it's a fallacy. Personal posts help you establish real connection, appear more trustworthy, generate more engagement, engage in real conversations, right? So now, of course, you see there's 163 comments. And when you look through it, that's where it was interesting, because then she writes in the comments, I always try to stick to an 80% random, 20% business cadence. Okay. And Richard Vanderbilt, the one I just told you about, who puts out that on report, he's like, I believe the total opposite. Your content is much more important than your profile. And then she responds, the content creates the visibility and drives the attention to your profile, which does the selling. So here we have two influencers going back and forth on a post, and it's all happening in the comments. And what's happening now on LinkedIn is LinkedIn is actually showing you how well your comments are resonating on your profile. You only see them. But what it's doing is showing the algorithm whether your content should be in the feed more often based on what you're commenting on LinkedIn. So, for example, and you'll be surprised, and that's why I'm showing you these various examples, because some of them had nothing to do with nothing. So this one was simply about, the first one here to the left was simply about, JetBlue and sold off his JetBlue Ventures. And I'm like, no surprise. And that comment got almost 3,000 impressions. It's like, what? Wait, why? Right? That's hence the light bulb. I'm like, but that made me pay attention, because now I'm like, okay, so LinkedIn is really tracking what I'm commenting on the platform, right? And then you can see, especially when there's more replies, the number goes higher. This case, again, you think about thought leadership, it was about, using AI in your post. And I'm like, yes, but you want to make sure you have a strategy, and you also want to make sure you are consistent. That one got, over 400 impressions, but this one was the one that was really interesting. So Kylie Lessard, who's a product manager on LinkedIn, was posting about video. And video at the beginning of the year was really good, and even the end of last year, but video as the year has gone on has not performed. But the post was specifically about video in your ads. So my question to her was, well, what about video in your feed? Because I'm not seeing that. Well, lo and behold, this one gets 26 replies. A lot of people are now jumping in on the conversation and over 5,000 impressions. So just questioning what someone is saying on LinkedIn. So I'm not being contrary or anything. I'm like, show me the data, honey, because I'm not seeing it. And then this other one, again, this is another example of just, basic, just a basic comment, this one, being a 50 plus job seeker is very challenging, then she has a picture of her in the office. And then I just respond, like I always say, I may be old, but I ain't cold. Me, I'm just being funny. And that got almost 1,300 impressions and a couple of replies. So the thing is, LinkedIn is watching what you're commenting in. So you really want to kind of get there. This is another easy way. If you don't really have time to post, definitely get in there and comment, because LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, sorry, back to Richard Vanderblue, his data is showing that creators who comment at least 3 to 4 times a day experience 14% less decline, even when their posting is infrequent. So when they finally do post, they're not getting the decline everyone else is who doesn't post as frequently either. So get in there. You can ask a question. You can introduce some new source of data or a different angle. You can include some comment, humor, whatever it is, but don't be afraid. Don't just be the fly on the wall. Go in there and comment every now and again. And I think the more you do it, the other thing is, the more you do it, and what's nice about seeing this data, I'm going to go back a sec. What's nice about seeing this data is it kind of clues you in on what people are interested in, right? So if you're a digital marketer and you're talking about different type of formats, here's some data here where people are responding. They're really interested in finding out how is video going to work, because it's not working for them, contrary to what is being said here. So this is another sort of source of information for you when you now decide that, yep, it's time for me to start posting on LinkedIn. So here's an example of a post, and I like this post because actually it's a framework that you could actually use, and this is why I'm part of the reason I'm sharing with it. But this is another, Lara's another influencer on LinkedIn. She's sharing her 4-step framework, the SLAY framework. I'm story, a lesson, actionable advice, and and then you talk straight to your reader. And then she has a link here. So the hook is always important. You really want to make sure you have a strong hook. Then she has a CTA, gives you a link, go right to YouTube. And then she has a great image here that has all the components there. Again, the story, the lesson, the action, the you part. So, and you can see she got a lot of reaction there. Now, mind you, she has probably a couple 100,000 followers. So, it's not, it wouldn't be strange to have this many comments and posts. But what you want to do is, this is a really simple format to follow. Have a hook, start with a question, with a stat or a bold statement. Now you go into the body, make sure you have some key takeaways. You can use emojis or not, but the idea is to have a lot of white space, because most people are reading from mobile. So you want them to be able to scan it and make it skimmable, easy, 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 easy. So that's one of the reasons bullets work well. And then a clear call to action, right? What do you want? Ask another question, invite comments, offer a resource, whatever that is. So of course, as always, I have a prompt that helps you with this, and I'm going to show you an example. So let me hold off for a second before I get into the example. Are there anything in the chat that I need to address real quickly? Oh, Jenny, I think it's rude. Yeah. Yes. And that's the other thing. When you do post and people will comment, you should definitely reply, because you will get a lot more engagement once you get going. So let me find my little prompt that I want to show you. All right, here we go. Almost there, almost there. Okay. All right, so here we go. Here's the prompt. Acting as a LinkedIn engagement expert, write 150 words, put a two-line hook, three bullets, open-ended questions, clear DM, get a copy of my template, three hashtags. And by the way, 3 to 5 hashtags is the most you ever want. The hashtags don't help you with the algorithm, like in terms of reach or impressions, but it is there for searchability. So you can use it for that. That's all it's going to help you with, right? So now, and I asked it for 5 versions. I always ask it for 5. And then it has, here I asked it for a question. Did you know 72% of first round investors say they rather respond faster to an AI craft outreach? Only 8% of startups actually leverage it. And you have some bullets. What's your biggest hurdle? DM me, blah, blah, blah. So give me 3, 4, here we go, 5 versions. What do I do next? I ask it to rank it and then tell me why, right? So here's my ranking, best to worst, pros and cons for each version. Version 1, compelling emojis, strong engagement, clear CTA. The stat might feel generic, could benefit some, vivid antidote or metaphor. So then it goes through all of them. Then like version 4, then like 2, and then like version 5, version 3 was the worst, right? And then I said, okay, let's take version 1, but rewrite it to address those cons and to specifically ask to answer the CTA in the comments, right? So then it updates it. Now it's like turning a pebble into a magnet. 72% of VCs say they respond faster to an AI craft outreach. And then it goes on and on. And it asks, what's your biggest hurdle? Comment template, and I'll send you my investor email template right here. So LinkedIn can sometimes, and it is starting to crack down on that, and it's treating that when people do, comment, they put up whatever the word is that wants you to comment, is clickbait, and then sometimes you get penalized. So I said, well, you know what? I don't want to be penalized, so let's, why don't we do something like, what's your biggest hurdle? And share below, and I'll DM you a proven template, right? So then they go through that, and it makes the adjustment, right? So then now you got something that's reasonable. So again, in that, I'm going to go back to that slide here. Yeah, the prompt library is here for help you to create your prompts going forward. Okay. So the things you want to think about, avoid the jargon, especially if you've been in a field for a long time, everybody. But if you're in that field and you're actually thinking about switching industries, you definitely want to make sure you de-jargon your post and actually de-jargon your profile as much as possible. Thinking about sparking dialogue, adding the questions, invite people to talk, meet you in the comments, make it memorable. So the storytelling always helps. And then the visuals. Again, you just got to break things up because people are doing things from their phone. They're reading mostly from their phone. And, no more than 5 hashtags. It is not IG. So don't cut and paste the post, the copy from IG to here. It's not going to work. And the formatting, this is want to show you an example of why the formatting really, really matters. So this was a post. It was originally created on a company page, right? So one of the presenters, Daryl, wanted to also post about this upcoming event on his personal page. Now you can see when it was on the company page, it didn't get a lot of reaction. So he posts, well, I posted for him. And all I did is I just broke this up so it's a lot more readable. It literally had the same hook there as the new year begins, uncertainty abounds. And then I'll be joining the conference. I tagged all the other panelists in there. Join us to hear. And again, it's all the text that's here, but it's just broken up a little bit better so it's easily read. I put the link in there, learn more, and a couple of hashtags. Now we're getting over 100 reactions and even 5 reposts. So, and the other thing is when you look at the analytics, which we're going to talk about later, but this is where you can start seeing, are you reaching the right people, right? And in this case, we are. So just these little bit of changes can help your post. So you don't have, it's not literally crazy adjustments here. Just think about, making it easy for people to see. And even if their link is there, the link is not going to necessarily cause you to get less engagement. Because I know a lot of people say put the link in the comments. LinkedIn is not penalizing links the way you think they are. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. So let's talk about the actual content you're posting. Are you posting video, documents, or polls on LinkedIn? What are you doing? Or is it just text only, videos? Half of you participated. I see a lot of text only. I have some single image, a couple multiple image, mostly text only. All right, I'm going to end the poll. All right. All right. So you have a lot of options when you're on LinkedIn, right? So when you go in there, you hit your home feed, video shows up first. But video, you're going to see in a minute, is not the one. And I think the reason it shows up first right here is because they want you to use it. But when you hit that plus, you see a lot more options show up down here when you go in there. And so here's the data. So this is hot off the press, right out of Richard Vanderbloom's his insight report that he released earlier this week. And we can see right here the document post, and I'm going to show you what that looks like, is going crazy. I mean, in terms of engagement, it's up 46%. Articles. So if you have a newsletter, so you can have articles and you could also have newsletter, and LinkedIn treats them the same. Those are doing really well. And the cool thing about a newsletter, if you launch a newsletter on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will notify all your connections. So if you have 2,000 connections, it's going to notify all 2,000 connections that you have a newsletter and to subscribe to it. And then when you get new people connecting with you, as soon as they connect, the next message they get will be that notification to subscribe to your newsletter. So it's really cool. Images are still performing as well in terms of engagement, over 15%. And I will say, when you have multiple images, 4 or 5 images, those work even better. So if you're going to go images, go all in. Like if you were at a conference and you're posting a recap of the conference afterwards, make sure while you're at the conference, you take a bunch of pictures and include that in the post. Right. What's not working? Video. So the one that they're pushing the most is actually working the least. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe things will change, but that is where we are right now on LinkedIn. And then you can just see some of the data here. A couple of posts that I did. This is a single image, and you can see when I did, similarly with the video, almost nothing. And then the document one, much better. And I'm going to show you this document post in a second. So why did this post get over 7,000 impressions? So this is what they call the achievement post. So people like, I got a promotion, or I'm on a board, something new and exciting happened. These achievement posts, anytime something happens in your life, you just got an award, anything, you need to post about it on LinkedIn, because this will drive engagement like crazy. And especially if you haven't been posting recently, this is a good way to re-energize your feed. You can do a year in review and then mention some of the big things that happened. So you could kind of do a whole recap all together. But it's newsworthy, and stuff with a great hook, stops the scroll. It has a visual. It could have been better, I think, actually. Well, this is what they, the association produced, just reused it. But it got over 300 reactions, 89 comments. So these achievement posts work really well. And they drive almost 3 times more interaction than a normal post. So think about that. The other thing that you can do is anybody who's presented anything, you present it at work, you present it to your board, you present it on a webinar, you can reuse that content. I think that's how sometimes we get a little paralyzed, because we're thinking about, what am I going to do next? This is what you're going to do next. So when I gave the presentation, my last presentation to BU, over 800 people had registered. Over 200 people showed up. I got over 200 questions, over 30 Q&A questions. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with all of this? So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it, well, not Chat GPT. So there's another LLM, if you're familiar, called Perplexity. And what I did is I just gave Perplexity the presentation. I uploaded all the comments, all the questions. And I said, well, I want to repurpose this. Give me some ideas. And boom, 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 boom. And these are the 7 I picked, right? I can do a video clip series. I can do parallel posts. I could do a newsletter series. I could do before and after. I could do long form articles, or I can do a Q&A. But each of these strategies will drive more visibility, more authority, more leads, more engagement. So it did say to me, if I did the Q&A series, I can then, with 30 questions, do 30 posts. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I ain't doing all of that though. What I did instead is I just did one single post. I talked about the fact that over 800 people registered. I mentioned some of the people that were there and their comments. And then I said, well, since I couldn't answer everything live, I'm attaching your questions answered doc. So that's the PDF, and I asked them to download it. And then this is the PDF. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. Okay. So when you upload a PDF on LinkedIn, it automatically will tell you, you put the name in there when you upload it, it has the number of pages. And by the way, about 8 or 9, I went a little long, is sort of like the sweet spot in the number of pages. But you see, open up in Adobe, you click these squares here, and now you can see all 11 pages. And by the way, the other thing, guess what? If you have ChatGPT and you connect in your Canva, it automatically created this. So I put the questions in, I connected my Canva, and it automatically created this. I added a little bit more, went over to Canva and made a couple adjustments, and I was done. So this is, AI at its best. And then you could just go ahead and download right here. If you click download, you can download. So anybody who's on your post that has a document, just remind them to download it and you're good to go. So let's get back here. All right. The other trick that you can do is use Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a Google tool, is a free tool, and it's literally your private notebook. So it's not training on your data, and it's not using your data. So nothing's happening. It's safe. It's literally, think about it as a notebook. And so same thing. I went in, uploaded all of the content, uploaded my presentation, uploaded that question and answer doc that I put together, all the questions from the chat as well, everything. And then you can see it'll say create your report. It automatically does all of this. And you usually just click, click, click and show it. Not only does it give you various type of reports that it automatically generates, I'm going to show you, it also gives you audio. So let's look at Notebook LM. Where did my notebook go? Um, I feel like I lost my window. Oh, wow. Well, that sucks. All right, let's go back. All right. Here we go. So, like I mentioned, you also get audio and video. So let me see if I can actually, I need to share my audio. Let me just do that. Okay. So the audio that it generates is basically like a podcast. So it basically took the presentation and all the other assets I uploaded and made like a podcast. So it's two voices, two people are talking about the content. So listen up.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a whole stack of resources, all aimed at one thing, really.
Yeah.
Boosting your professional visibility online.
Mm.
We're talking about building the ultimate AI-powered LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Basically synthesizing a toolkit to get you noticed, moving you from, well, hidden gem to center stage.
That's exactly right. And this isn't just about, small tweaks. We're talking a complete overhaul backed by data.
Okay.
So if you've spent ages trying to optimize your profile and not seen much happen, this deep dive, it's your shortcut. We've got the exact formulas, the character counts, even specific AI prompts our research shows will boost your impact fast.
Let's set the scene first, though, the stakes. Because the numbers, well, they're pretty staggering. Why is having a really optimized profile just non-negotiable now, say, for 2025?
Well, the sheer size of the network, for starters. LinkedIn, over 1 billion members globally now.
1 billion? Wow.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. 2.5 million people get hired through their connections every single year.
2.5 million.
Every year. So digital visibility.
So that's Notebook LM. And then, like I said, it generates all the resources here automatically. You can copy it into another document, take a look at it, and recreate it. So that's just, and it'll do like a blog post, all the things. And then if you even, if it's something you're working on with team members, you could also share it as well. So like I said, it's a totally free tool, and definitely take advantage of Notebook LM. So, like I said, there's all type of contents. You have a lot of options. I also put together a whole prompt library, which includes invites, the posts, the carousels, everything you need to be successful. So if you're interested, go ahead and hit that QR code and you can get over there. Okay, so we're coming to the end here, and it looks like we're gonna hopefully you can hang on for a couple more minutes and make sure I can get all your questions in. But LinkedIn has this site right here, members.linkedin.com that create, and it really does a good job of sort of organizing everything we talked about today. About the content, it talks about the news and talks about all the different things. So definitely, if you're thinking about like, well, what should I be thinking about? What type of topics work? LinkedIn has some great examples right there on the prop. But what I want you to do is just take, an idea here is just don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe Tuesday you do an image post, maybe Thursday you do a carousel, maybe Friday you some industry insight or just do a poll. Saturday you might just go in and just say, let me just comment on a bunch of things. So, just kind of put it on your calendar. I know I don't do stuff if it's not on my calendar. But the bottom line is, members who post once a week get up to four times more profile views once a week. So, I know some of you are just doing once a quarter. So like maybe we would take baby steps to go from once a quarter to twice a quarter to once a month, and then maybe work our way up to once a week. But I think again, with some of with some of the tools and access I put together, it's going to make it a lot easy. So every week, try and go in, at least respond to invitations, message people, engage on the feed. So even if you're not posting content, sorry about that, I want you to go in there and at least engage. Do that. Check your analytics. I'm going to talk about numbers in a second because LinkedIn gives you a lot of numbers, and actually they added a lot of new numbers. So I want to show you that in a second. So right now, the new thing is you can see from your post who viewed your profile. So before I used to see who viewed your profile like in aggregate. You can now see from which posts actually drove views to your profile. You can see who actually followed you from viewing your profile. You still have the reaction and comments you had before, but you also now can see how many times people reposted, how many times people saved your post, and how many times people sent your post to somebody else. Those are the metrics I really want you to monitor, because the engagement is where it's at. At the end of the day, the engagement is where the conversion happens. So you want to know that that is happening. So back to that document post, right? I can see the usual, but I could also see profile views, followers gained, the reposts, the saves, the sends, right? So that's really what's going to trigger the algorithm. Is the comment quality, the saves, the profile clicks weigh more heavily than likes and reactions. So that's what you want to be checking as you're going along. And here's another example of another post, and I'm going to show you a post and then I'm going to wrap up in a second. But I thought this one was critical because this was one where somebody was actually doing a fundraiser for their organization. And at the end, this is sort of like the recap post at the end. They had an event, and this is the recap post after the event. Almost 9,000 impressions, almost 5,000 reach. You can see reactions and link clicks. Again, link clicks, you're not being penalized the way you think you are, because you see in this case where he literally has the link right up at the front because he's trying to reach that 1 million goal. So after the event, he still had a little bit of a gap, and it did really well. So I mean, if you think about it, what worked here? The hook was good, right? From unimaginable loss to $850,000 raise, proof that a community can beat the odds, right? Clearly, the algorithm helped move things with 13 reposts and all of that. It was very authentic. Also had a little bit of cred because the governor was at the event. The mayor was there, multiple senators and reps were there. They had one of a leading medical sponsor as well was there. And then, in terms of targeting, because it's a local event, local organization, it got all of the response that it needed, including that 27 link clicks. And in fact, they did reach their $1 million goal in the end. So this is just a good example of how you can use LinkedIn, because I know nonprofits don't use it as much as they should, but they can because their sponsors are there, their donors are there, and you will get engagement if you have a really good, solid post there. So you'll see here again, you see the data, including the links and who is actually engaging. I mean, that's the person is in real estate, so it's not surprised that a lot of people in his network were looking at, and then you can see the seniority level as well. So as we recap here, I mean, again, sending you back to LinkedIn to that create site. And that's where you also will see things about if you want to go back, if you want to think about more ways to get your profile better, how to get started with content, other best practices, even using search, all of that is there on LinkedIn. So what do we have for questions? And if you want the replay, you can go ahead and upgrade right there and you'll be able to get the replay. So I'm going to stop share, and we went over time. I apologize. What do we have? And you guys are all here. Really, thank you for hanging in there. Any questions? If you want to come off mute or just actually use the hand raise function. If you want to do that, you can raise your hand, and then any questions that I didn't answer. Anything was in the chat, Karen, that I missed from earlier?
There were a few.
Okay.
You might have answered them, Angela. I'm going back. Let's see. What I think you did, what defines no? I know a lot of people exist, but I haven't had any level of interaction with most of them. Then Mary says, I used to only connect with people I know, but many colleagues have advised that I broaden that circle. So now I connect with everyone who reaches out and seems legit. Let's see.
Well, Jenny got her hand raised. Let's let Jenny jump in. Yep, go ahead, Jenny.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Hi there. I wanted to know, I am a resume slash LinkedIn writer for and career coach for a specific field, entertainment, media, and communications. And I wanted to know if you like what would be your best practices for identifying my people I should connect with, that type of thing. So if you get specific, if you have a specific area you want to connect with.
Yeah, so that search, you can search by industry. So
Okay.
you can do actually, so that was the other search. Let me pull my LinkedIn back up. I don't know how I closed everything down. That was so crazy. Let me open it back. That's a good question, Jenny. All right, now let me share my screen. All right, here we go. So this search bar in here, if you just click in here, you see all of this and all filters. So this is another way to start your search. You could do it this way.
Oh,
And then
okay. You,
yep, and you can go in here and then you could add whatever you don't see the well, you're not looking for hiring or anything. But if you have specific locations, you could add the locations, you could add the industry, you could add here's the industry here. You could add service character. That's probably not going to
oh,
work well.
cool. Okay.
But
Wow.
but then go in here and put title, and then you could put all the different titles that you were searching with. But remember, like if it's for example, I'm just gonna say entertainment law. So just put the entertainment law in quotes, and then you could put the or. Remember I mentioned the modifiers, and then
Right.
multiple.
VP or
Yep,
vice
yep,
president.
or vice president. Yep, that's it. Yep.
Okay.
So
So,
everything happens in the search bar.
okay.
Yep.
Same thing, just apply it to my specific field.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. Thank
Right.
you
And
so
then what you
much.
could also do with that is because you see how you can search a whole lot of different things. You can also search posts, so see what people are posting about. So when you're reaching out, then you can come up with things that to talk about as well.
Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Angela,
Yeah.
Susan Bollinger has a question. I can see where this is valuable for seeking ongoing clients, but those of us in more traditional jobs who are primarily using LinkedIn for intermittent job seeking, do you still recommend this level of engagement, or is there a different model to follow?
Yeah, I definitely would be engaging. I mean, because at the end of the day, whether you're in a industry for a long time or you're transitioning industries or you're looking for clients or opportunities, no matter what it is, you have an expertise, you have a talent. And the only way people are going to know about that if you're actually talking about it. Right? So you want to get out there and be talking about your talents and sharing your expertise because sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen next. Here today, gone tomorrow. I'm sure all those federal employees thought they would be in that role forever. And it just turns out that that was not quite the way it's going to work out this year. Like I always tell my nonprofits, always be fundraising. You got to always got to kind of be out there. What else we got? I know we're past time. Anything else?
Nothing else in the chat that I can see.
Okay, so let me just get back up here. So like in closing, just make sure you're continuing to build your network. You're engaging, just do the comment thing. You can get to posting later, take your time, but the comments are pretty easy. You just go in there, read a couple of things and comment. And not, great job or something like be a little bit more substantial. Think about how you can take the content that you are developing, because everything you do, believe it or not, is content, and how you can then repurpose it. And just don't forget, we use email every day, and people just don't forget something simple like, you know what, I should include my LinkedIn URL in my email signature. Just another easy way to help people connect with you. And then, like I mentioned before, more information. I have that VIP bundle that has all of the replays, the prompts, and all that other good stuff is there. And if you haven't connected with me at this point, go ahead and connect. And I appreciate everybody for coming today. Apologies again for running a little bit long. But you know what? This was good for me, and I hope it was good for you. Yeah. All right. So, Jenny, I'll see you in a minute. I'll give Sarah
Sounds
too.
great. I'm very grateful
Yep.
I signed up in advance for the VIP.
Yep. Good. Good, good, good. Well, thank
See
you,
you.
everyone. That's it. I'm going to stop the recording.